Welcome back to Inside the Gold Cup, where I've shooed Shep Messing and John Hucks. I've got rid of them. They're out of the studio. Finally, I can breathe a little bit easier. Now, I have the pleasure of introducing Dr. Sunil Gulati with me, the president of US Soccer. And Sunil, from what I read, not only have you been involved in football for an incredibly long time, but you've also followed the fortunes of the Gold Cup. How has it grown in your mind from 1991 to where it sits today in 2007?
Well, but the only thing that hasn't changed since we started in 1991 is that the U.S. has never lost a game in group play, so that's consistent. No, the event has come an extraordinarily long way in 16 years. That first Gold Cup, we got some credibility by beating Mexico, but the event in terms of attendances, in terms of organization, TV coverage, sponsorship, in every which way, it's just a phenomenal growth over a pretty short period of time.
In your own experience, you started in the game here in the US as an administrator, where you were saying to me before we started this interview you pretty much had to run around and do everything. How has the game progressed from then?
Well, if you look at where we were, let's say 20 years ago, we didn't have a professional league. We hadn't been in the World Cup since 1950. We had, I think, 5 full-time employees, a budget of a couple of $1 million, and no money in the bank. A lot of kids playing. Where we are today, we've qualified for 5 straight World Cups on the men's side. We've won a couple on the women's side. We've got a professional league with 13 teams. We've got 90 some odd people working at the Soccer Federation, an annual budget of about $35 million, a surplus, a capital account of about $50 million, and virtually all of our games are on national television. That wasn't the case back then. All MLS games are on television, which wasn't obviously the case when we didn't have a league. So the growth over the last 20 years, and that we're not even talking about our youth teams. Our youth teams at the national level are really almost unrivaled across the world. We haven't won any world championships there, but our under-17 team is qualified for every one. So we're pretty regular participants in all of FIFA's events at the world level.
Now, for yourself personally, you've contributed very heavily to football here in the USA, or soccer here in the USA. In fact, Alan Rothenberg said that pretty much you could pin most of the success on your shoulders. Is it something that you decided to take the responsibility on top of your own shoulders and try and drive the game forward, or is it a culmination of a whole group of people?
Well, and thank Alan for his comments. I think they're probably a little bit exaggerated. It wasn't the plan. I got involved a long time ago with the state team in Connecticut, and that eventually grew into everything else we've been doing. But I can't say it was part of a master plan back then for my own personal involvement. There was certainly a master plan to try to see soccer succeed, and we had outlined a number of things back then: a professional league, success at the international level for our teams, the growth of the women's game. All of those things are things that were targeted a long time ago, as well as bringing the World Cup here, which we did in 1994. And the longer term part of that plan is to bring it back again. So those sorts of things we've had on the drawing board for a long time.
Now, I read that you're a lecturer of economics, and from a supply and demand side of things, if we just go purely on the economics of the game, how did you grow the demand for football here in the US?
That's actually the bigger challenge now. We've increased the supply quite a bit. We've got a lot of professional games, a lot of games on TV, and the demand is sporadic. For the national team in qualifying games, it's great. For an event like the Gold Cup, it's obviously been phenomenal. For the World Cup itself, it's bigger than anything. But for regular play, season in, season out with the league, that's tough. And so that's a long-term process. The league has made great progress, steady climb, but not that big jump to get to the Premier League level. And I don't think that's going to happen. David Beckham coming this year will certainly help. But everyone understands that it's a long-term investment, a long-term play to get the demand side of things. As the president of DC United often says, we have to sell tickets one at a time.
Now, how important is it for the US to do well in the Gold Cup?
Well, it's very important for a number of different reasons. One is it's a ticket to the Confederations Cup in the summer of 2009 in South Africa. 2 is it's our Confederation Championship, so we take it very seriously. Add to that 2 other things which are unique this time to the Gold Cup, which is that we're defending champions, so you want to repeat, and obviously we're playing at home. Now, a few Gold Cups have been here, so it's very important to us. Add to all of those things, we've got a lot of new young players. The Gold Cup cycle, when it falls the year after the World Cup, is always a lot of new players. And so the coach, who is also new, and that puts more pressure on him, understands that it's very important that we do well. And by doing well, for us, in this case, that means winning the Gold Cup. It's not, it's terrific that we've won 3 games. Players have worked very hard to get to the quarterfinals. Safely the only team to get there with 9 points. But they understand that success at the Gold Cup means playing in Chicago on the 24th and winning in Chicago on the 24th.
Well, we touched on yesterday's show about how the Gold Cup has progressed, and it's gone from something like 2.3 goals per game average in 1993 to 0.9 where we sit in 2007. And one of the questions that I asked Shep and John is, do you think teams like the USA and Mexico haven't really grown as much, or is everyone caught up and there's a certain plateau level, you can't sort of progress any further?
Well, we've got 7 in 3 games, so we're carrying our part of it. We're scoring 2.33 a game. No, I think undoubtedly the level of play in Concacaf has risen. We've gotten a lot better. So has Mexico, but a number of other teams have closed that gap by improving leaps and bounds. So that's one thing. The other thing is that when the Gold Cup was first starting, people didn't know really what to expect. They didn't know how important it was. And, you know, I guess I would say, unfortunately, when the competition gets tougher, coaches generally become a little bit more defensive oriented, be a little bit safer. And so I think that's probably also what's happened since 1991.
What do you think in terms of the future of the Gold Cup? Where would you like to see it go as a tournament?
Well, certainly in the next Gold Cup, the 2009 version, I'd like to see the U.S. trying to win its 3rd in a row. You know, you can always get better. But looking at the numbers of this Gold Cup in terms of attendance, in terms of the television partners, in terms of the commercial partners, boy, it's come so far. If you could come anywhere near replicating what's happened in the last 16 years, in the next 16, then, you know, you couldn't ask for more than that. That's going to be impossible to do because the tournament's come so far. You can't sell out a stadium twice. You can only sell 70,000 seats, and that's what we've got, some sellouts in this event. Some great TV partners, some great sponsors. The level of play has gotten better, and I think Concacaf made the right decision by restricting it to Concacaf teams, so it's a true Confederation Championship. Needed some maybe some outside name teams to lift the level of play and the level of interest for a few years. That helped, but now, as we're showing in the last couple of weeks, this thing can stand on its own, and not just stand on its own, but thrive on its own. It's been a tremendous, tremendous 10 days.
Well, good luck with the US team for the rest of the tournament, the quarters, the semis, and also the final, hopefully. Fingers crossed for you.
Thank you very much.
Sits there with a confident smile on his face.
I've had my legs crossed the whole time, so I've got you covered there.
And we better let Shep and John come back in. So when we see you, we've got more from the Gold Cup next.